Hey guys, what's happening today? Hope everybody's doing all right out there. Super hot here today. I'm upstairs here in my new little working on my air guns area, and I have to turn the air off and my fans so people can hear when I'm doing stuff. So anyway, I know a while back I did a video on nitro piston failure, and it was on my Crosman F4, which, by the way guys, this is the gun right here that started my air gun addiction. I bought this and it just took off from there, so I've had this gun for a while and absolutely love it. So when the piston failed in it, I was really bummed out. At that time I didn't have any other guns to shoot. Not an issue anymore, I got a pile of them. But anyway, made that video. In that video I said that I was going to make a follow-up video on how to take it apart. I had shot a video and lost all the footage. So here in the last couple of weeks I've had a couple of people comment on that video that they'd sure like to see that. So I'm going to go ahead and tear this thing apart, guys, and I'm going to show you how to get that Nitro Ram out of these guns. This is, I call it an NP1 because there's the Nitro Piston 2 systems now. So if you hear me referring to NP1, that's what I'm talking about. They're not too hard to do. Now, it's been a while since I've done it, so I might be fumbling around a little bit. But some of the tools you're going to need. You're going to need a Phillips screwdriver. I grabbed me a couple different pairs of pliers here. I didn't have a bigger socket handy. I think this one will work just fine for what we got to do to compress the piston. And then, most important thing that I didn't already have laying around was this guy. This is, I believe it's an 18-inch clamp. Let's see if I can find my little tape measure. I meant to do that before I started the video. There it is. Yeah, it's, well, I don't know. From the very end, it's like 20. But 18, 20-inch clamp. You can buy this guy at Harbor Freight, guys, for $6 or $7. They're pretty cheap. Now, they do make nicer jigs and stuff to mount these in, to take them apart, which they're nice, but they're pretty pricey. And if you're like me, you don't have a ton of money laying around to be buying tools with. So I mean, you got to spend money on more important things like air guns. So I make do, with what I have. So I picked this guy up, and it works fine. There's a little bit of fumbling around with it, but it'll do the job that needs to be done. So just getting started. The first thing I did here, first thing you're going to want to do if you have a scope on it, which F4s don't have iron sights unless you put aftermarket ones on. You're going to want to remove your scope. Get it out of the way. Now we have a few screws here we have to take out. We got one on each side here. We have this one down in here. And like I said, it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure we got to take this guy out too. So we'll get started there. I only need like I said, I always like to use an empty pellet tin to throw my parts in. We'll get started on this. I made a video last night about converting a Diana chaser from CO2 to high pressure air, and it went really long. It's almost an hour long, so I'm really going to try to make this a much faster video. Just a regular Phillips screwdriver, guys. Nothing fancy. You can see I got Loctite all over those. I've had this gun apart a few times. Ooh, that baby's nice. Loctited really good. Ooh, I may have put a little more than I needed to on that one. The one thing with these break barrel air rifles, guys, they do a lot of vibrating and beat stuff up. You can see I put this center point 4x32 back on it. I had a penny 6 to 24x50 on it, and it just ate it alive. I mean, it just completely destroyed it. So pretty rough. I still haven't figured out a better scope usage yet. So anyway, so here we are. We've got those screws removed. We can take the whole action out of the gun now, or out of the stock rather. We got it removed. This little piece right here, guys, you see it was sitting over this. When it sits down, I'll show you here. I'll slide it back into place. But it sits down in here for this lug to sit in, kind of help hold it in place. This guy right back here. So you want to be careful, because as you can see, it likes to just fall out. So you can lose that pretty easy. But we'll throw that there. We'll get this stock out of the way. That's how simple it is to get the action out. Now, first thing we're going to do, and you can use a box end wrench for this if you find whatever size it is, probably like a 13 millimeter, or an adjustable, you know, like a crescent or something like that. But I'm just going to use a pair of pliers on it to take this off. I should be able to get it off here. See, it's squared off there, so yeah. That. Let's remove this, get it out of the way. You see there's a little bit of Loctite on that. I want you guys to look here where that went through. You can see that this tab comes off the trigger pack and goes there, and it kind of helps pin all that stuff down into place. Now, this whole trigger assembly, or trigger pack, will all come off in one piece. And we'll get to that here. Just shortly here. We can't take the trigger pack off until we get the spring compressed, we get this pin out, and we get all this stuff out. So now that is out, we should be able to pull this cap off, just like that. You can see what it looks like. You can't really put this thing on wrong, guys, when it goes back, because it has to have this for the stud that goes in here, and then this piece here straddles the pin, so you're not going to be able to put it back in wrong. So don't really worry too much about the orientation of how that was set up. Set that guy over there out of the way. Now we're at the point. Well, you know what? We're going to take this linkage off. This linkage here, and if you watched any other videos on this, I know other guys have talked about it. This linkage here is what prevents you from pulling the trigger when your brake barrel is open, so it doesn't let that hammer go flying forward, and it'd probably scare the crap out of you more than anything else. I don't think it would hurt you, but this linkage is what keeps that from getting away. So what we're going to do, we're going to take, I got my little handy dandy pick set here. Now if you guys watch any of my videos, you know that I talk about almost every video on working on stuff. You know, have a pick set handy. You don't have to have one. You can use a little flat screwdriver, you know, maybe something like this. You don't have to have a pick set, but it is definitely handy. So anyway, this C-clip or E-clip, whatever you want to call it, we got to take this guy off. So if you're not familiar with these clips, if you haven't messed with them before, you want to be careful when you're taking these on or taking these off, because they have they work under tension. They go around and they just grab. So what can happen is, as you're pulling these off, if you're not being careful, that thing could go flying and you're going to lose it. But you can go to about any hardware store and find another one. You just have to take this pin completely out and take it with you and to get the right one. What I like to try to do when I go to remove one of these is I'll get my pick down in there like that, and I'll put my finger over it And I'll just start doing this. I'll just start pulling on it, working it back and forth, and hope that you don't lose the damn thing. Let's see. This one is being very stubborn. It's coming though. Come on. Ooh. Come on. There we go. Just a little tiny thing. Very, very easy to lose. You hear me say that a lot in my videos too, these little parts in these guns. Again, that's why I like to use an old pellet tin or something to throw your parts in. Okay, now that we've gotten that off, next thing we have to do is, and this is, in my opinion, I mean, I guess we'll see how the rest of this goes, but in my opinion, this is one of the worst parts, is getting this spring more so back on than off. It's a real pain in the ass to get it fed back up through there and get it back on. You can see that it goes in. Now maybe you can see it. Wraps around there and it goes in here and it hooks to this trigger pack. So what we're going to do is I'm going to push on this. This is like, say, I remember putting this damn gun back there. See, like that, it just popped right off, no problem. But putting it back together, man, I had a heck of a time getting that thing back on there. So now we can lift this linkage up like this. Then you can turn it. This will come up out of the way now too. And you can just remove that piece of linkage if you want, or you can just flop it over out of the way. You don't have to take it off. You can see here on the end of this how it kind of flutes out, or whatever you want to call it. And then you have your hole here. Down inside here, when you're putting this guy back together, it'll just fit down in there like that, slide in. Something else too I should probably mention, these little rollers, this is what rolls inside your stock when you're cocking your gun. This one's on really good, but I do have some, my sons have a couple of Tyros, Crosman Tyros, or youth brake barrels, and these things just fall right off. There's actually 2 of them on the Tyros, but they just slip right off, they fall right off. So you just want to keep an eye on that you don't lose that roller. So anyway, we're going to pull this guy up and get it out of the way for now. And now you can see down in here, this is the piston that your Nitro Ram goes up into. Alright, now that we've got that off, we're going to compress the spring and or not the spring, we're going to compress the Nitro Ram, which will allow us to remove this pin, this guy right here, which will then allow us to remove this follower and pull the Nitro Ram out. So let's do that. Now I know I've seen videos where guys, they completely remove the barrel to do this. On this gun, you don't have to do that. Once you get this action out of the stock, there's enough of a lip right here for this clamp to grab onto. You don't need to do anything. You don't have to break it or anything. It'll hook up on that. And most of these Crosmans are set up this way, where, at least in my opinion, you don't need to remove it. It's just one less step and a hassle that you have to put up with. Not that it's a huge deal. I mean, you take this screw out and it comes out. It's out of the way. But this way you don't have to do that. So let's go ahead and get our clamp on. Like I said, guys, this part can be a little bit tedious getting this deal off. One nice thing with these are really cheap, crappy clamps, guys. There's nothing fancy about these. But, you know, I mean, if you want to spend a bunch of money on a fancier one, that's up to you. But tearing these apart is a pretty occasional thing. You don't have to take these apart every day, so do whatever you want. But okay, it says right on here, 18-inch clamp. It's an 18-inch clamp. So anyway, you can use this, push that in, slide this guy up and down wherever you need it. So you just kind of get figured out where you need to be. I'm going to come back a little bit more. Oh, you know what? I don't even need a socket for this. That's right. I forgot. I don't even need one. This pad is a smaller diameter than this follower. I call it a follower. Don't really know what the technical name for it is. I'm trying to make sure this all gets in the shot. But you can see the guns, you know, the actions moving around here and stuff. But get this guy in here. And you want to try to get it as centered as possible. And start tightening this thing up. You can see I got my thumb up here as I'm tightening it, because otherwise the whole clamp is going to want to come over. Almost there. This thing will go where it'll just damn near fall out, just like that, just by itself. You don't have to compress it very much. You don't need a whole big high tension deal to do this, at least not on nitro piston guns. I haven't taken apart a spring gun yet, so I don't know how intense those are as far as pressure, but you don't have to do that on these. So we're going to back this guy off. You can see that follower's coming out. Clamp falls free. Now we can remove this follower. Just like that. Now, again, you can see this kind of flat spot on the follower. There's a threaded hole. That's what this guy threads into, like this, when the gun's together. Again, it's only going to go in a certain way. So, I mean, of course, you want to keep, you know, you want to monitor the orientation of it as you're taking it apart. But this thing's only going to go back in there in one way. So, we're going to set that off to the side. Now we can remove our trigger pack. I'm trying to remember. Like I said, it's been a while. Let's see. You know what? If you're just taking your ram out, you don't even have to take the trigger pack off. So you can see here's my Nitro Ram. This one was manufactured in 2015. This was the replacement one that Crosman sent me. Now, I want to say a little word about Crosman's customer service. Guys, Crosman is amazing. I mean, when I contacted them about this Nitro Ram, they didn't mess around. They didn't want the old one back. They wanted the serial number. They wanted to see this, and if you guys, hopefully you can see that. Here's part number, then here's the manufacturing date on it. If you have one of these and it has failed on you, and I had the receipt for mine, but if you happen to not have the receipt, I still think if you give them the serial number from the gun and you give them this, they'll know when it was manufactured. And if that thing's less than 5 years old, which is their warranty period, I'm really confident that they will just replace it. This Nitro Ram, I contacted Crosman a while back for asking for a price list for some different parts, and this was one of them, because I have a Swiss Arms TG1 that I want to convert over to Nitro, and these things are only like $10.10. So for Crosman, you know, it's just like, just send them another one. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's really all you have to do. So really, if you're just pulling your Nitro Ram out, you don't even have to take this linkage that I took off. You don't even have to take it off. You don't worry about it. But I am going to go ahead and show you guys how to get this, if I can remember. I'm going to show you how to get this linkage off of here, now that we have that ram out. Now, down in here is where it engages the sear. There we go. Pop that little tab up that was there. And I'll pull this off and I'll show it to you. And then this whole trigger pack will come back and you can take it out. That's, when putting it back together, that's kind of a tricky part, because you can see this is the part right here that I was just pushing up on to get it to disengage enough where I could slide this trigger pack back. And as you can see, guys, it's under spring tension, so it can engage the piston. When you cock that thing back, here's the notch in the piston. When this thing cocks back, that's what that sear goes over and it holds on to. And when you pull that trigger, it allows that sear to come up, releases that, lets the Nitro Ram slam it forward, sending your pellet down the barrel. They're really pretty simple. There's not a lot to them. So we got that out, and then I was telling myself, well, I'm not going to pull the piston out. It can be going back in more than anything. It can be a little bit tricky. Now, some guys will, I've done work on this trigger, and some guys will, when they have these things apart, they'll polish all this stuff up. But I've got this trigger set up, which I have a video on working on these Crosman, a couple different NP1 and 2 guns. And there's tons of videos if you want to improve your trigger on your Crosman gun. Let me get this guy where I'm gonna get messed up. Okay. So now we can go ahead and pull this piston back and get it pulled out. I'm going to get something here to lay it on. I really don't want to get all hairy on the sock. So this is paperwork from the gun that I bought my son. We'll just lay it on that. So you can see here, you can start pulling this guy back like that. Pull it back. We're starting to see the end of it. Here's your piston seal, and that's the thing you really got to be careful of when you're putting these back together. Now, something about these guys, these pistons are super greasy. I mean, they're the kind of grease that's on these really sticks to your fingers and gets you dirty. But if you're a mechanically inclined person, you're used to that. So, and I'll show you too what I use, guys. I'm not gonna clean this thing and re-grease it because I just had it apart recently. So I'm gonna try to not wipe much grease off of it. Here's what the piston looks like. This is what your Nitro Ram is inside this piston. When you compress it, pow, this is what forces the air out of the compression tube and into your barrel. So when you have these apart, if you're going this far with it, you just want to kind of look these piston seals over and make sure they're not, there isn't a bunch of chunks missing out of them or anything like that. You want to make sure that they look like they're in pretty decent shape. And this one's still good. You know, if you're ordering a new Ram from Crosman, if you're having to buy one, I would just probably order a piston seal. I think they're less than $10. So it's probably going to cost you. I think their standard shipping is $4. So you're looking at like $25 for a new Ram and a new piston seal. I mean, don't 100% quote me on that, but it's going to be right around there somewhere. So anyway, so we got that apart. And if you are going to clean this piston off, you're going to want to clean the inside of this compression tube. You can look around at some videos. I know Rick Eustace over at Airgun Web. He takes a drill with a cleaning rod and puts a paper towel through it, runs it up inside there. Some guys will use brake cleaner. You can use different things to clean that tube out, but you want to kind of get it cleaned out and looking a little bit better. And then you're going to put it back together. So I'm going to slide this baby back in, like so. Now when you start sliding this guy in, see, I went a little bit too far there already. Luckily it didn't catch. You have these edges and I know Rick made a video about doing this, and that's kind of where I learned from him from watching his video. But one of the things in the comments that I saw that people were complaining about was that they couldn't really see what he was actually doing. So I'm going to try to show you that. Here's the edge of that piston seal, and you have these edges, you know, these are all stamped steel. So these edges can be kind of sharp, and you got this one up here. Now, when you're putting this back in, you can use like a flat blade screwdriver to kind of put over that piston seal to kind of help feed it past there. When I was putting this one back together last time, it didn't seem like it was really catching too bad, so I just kind of slowly worked it back in. And the other thing too is you want to try to keep this thing clocked correctly. And by clocking it, I mean this way and this way. You want to have it as centered as possible. You got to have that centered right to get the trigger packed back in correctly and to make it work. I mean, if it's not right when you go to cock it, it's not the sear's not going to engage the piston. So we got that there. I'll just use the ram to slide it back up in there like that. We're going to keep going, maybe. And all the videos, see that cleared that just fine. All the videos I saw of guys, when they grease these pistons, they don't use a ton of grease on them. I mean, everybody says to lightly grease them. You don't need to put a shitload of grease on them. I will tell you this though, when you've had these things apart, and like when I had this apart, I had cleaned all that and re-greased it and put it back together. And when I took it outside to shoot it, it ignited when I shot, which some people, and it's also called rifling, or not rifling, but dieseling. Dieseled on me, or ignited, which means it sounded like a powder burner, like a 22 rimfire going off. It's pretty freaking loud. So let's get that piston up in there. As you can see, if you notice, the piston is moving on me as I'm putting it up in there. That's okay. It'll turn just like that. Just need to use some tools, take your time, and it'll end up right up in there where it needs to be. There, I got it all the way up in there now. Slide the ram back out. And there's no special anything, you know, that you need to do with these rams. They're completely sealed. It's a sealed system. Once these go bad, that's it. They're toast. I mean, there's no fixing them. They're done. So, looks like I got a little wear going on here. I'll have to check into that. But anyway, so we got the piston back in. Now, I'm going to put my trigger pack back on. Like I say, this is where stuff can get a little bit tricky. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to show you what I use. You can go out and buy Moly lube. That's what they recommend for it. And I kind of searched around. The Moly lube is pretty pricey. I mean, a bottle of it like this is like 30 bucks. And for me, it was like, well, god dang, I don't tear these apart hardly ever. And again, like I said earlier in the video, I got air guns to buy. I need to save as much money as I can. So I went and got some engine assembly lube. And it has the Moly graphite in it. So this has worked well for me for this gun. I've shot probably at least 2 more tins of pellets through it since I put it back together, and I haven't had any problems with it. It works fine. So I'm sure Moly lube is probably a little bit better than engine assembly lube, but this does have a high Moly graphite content in it, so it works well for it. So, all right, so we got the piston back in. Now we're going to get our trigger pack back in. You can see it has these little legs or whatever that stick out. We're going to go right down into here like this, and you can see where kind of the problem is here with this deal, why this is a little bit tricky to get in, because it's not long enough to just kind of reach out and stay there when it's back here. So we got to get it kind of down into here. At the same time, we got to kind of try and hold it up. Just trying to remember how I did it last time. Okay, it's been a while. Let's see if we can hold this guy up like this. Like I said before earlier in the video, this is about the worst part about it. And I'm sure there's somebody out there that knows a trick to it that's real simple that I don't know. Boy, it's hot up here. Fall down in there. Let's see what we got to do here. And how about this? How about we get it started? What some of you are saying out there is like a monkey trying to have a football. How about we do this? We reach up in here. See, now I'm too far forward. Come back a little bit. Come back a little bit more. There we go. Slide it forward. Boom. That's probably what I did last time. I just don't remember. So, you drop that guy down in there. You slide your finger up in here and you can push that sear up and make it clear. That little tab right there, and then you can see back here, looks like we got it pretty much right where we need it. So got that guy back in. Now you can install your new ram like that. Then let's go ahead and put this cap back in there. Got this guy. See, even I can't remember exactly how it goes. Threaded side this way. Like I say, that's where your that ram. So we got that guy sitting right there. Let's go ahead. We're going to swing this back around. Like I said before, this guy will fit right down in there. It'll sit down flat. You actually have to have it up a little bit to put your linkage on. Let me show you how that works. Just to set up where you guys can see. I know you saw me take it off, but we'll do this anyway. Have this guy up a little bit. It'll pop right over that. We're going to bring this up. Just like that. Now we're going to swing it down. And the other fun part, which is putting the getting this spring back on. Who knows, maybe it'll get real lucky here and it'll just pop right back on. I know I fought it last time I had it apart. And this is going to be really hard to show you guys because I got to have this laying down here. No, it came out the other side, so here we go. Little tiny spring. Come on. Stay put. Something about working on air guns, guys. A lot of it's really simple, but a lot of it too, though, is like these little tiny parts like this that can be a little frustrating at times. I don't know about you guys, but I've found if I start working on something and it's not going how I want it to, I start getting frustrated. The best thing for me to do is walk away from it for a little bit. Come on. It's right there. Got it. Okay. That went way faster than it did last time that I did that, guys. I am going to try to push it over just a little bit more. See if I can make it stick out. There we go. I'll show you. Try to anyway. You don't need to have that in there yet. So, it was hard to see. There's that spring. I just pulled it forward with the pick, and then I took my finger and pushed until I got a little bit of that sticking out of there. Pulled the pick out, and then pushed it further with my finger. Probably wouldn't hurt to have that clip on already too, which we'll go ahead and put it back on now. So we got that in. Find it. These things are about as big a pain in the ass putting back on as they are taking off. So hold her down nice and flat, especially when you got giant fingers like me. You can't see what you're doing. This is where I'll try to use a little flat blade screwdriver. Again, hold your finger over it and just start trying to work it down on there, like I say, and hope it doesn't get away. There we go. It helps too. This pin that goes through there had moved a little bit, so if, like I say, if you haven't messed with these before, and it's probably not, you're probably not gonna be able to see in this video, but this pin has a groove in it that goes all the way around, and that's where that little clip seats, and that's what you're trying to get to. So I am actually, let's see if I can show that to you. And you see how much that's sticking up. Maybe you can see that groove, and I'm going to be holding that C-clip down flat on there, so I'm actually going to push this down. I'm going to move this pin back just a little bit. I want to get it down where it's almost flush with that when I got it pushed down. Probably not that much. Probably about like that. So when you're trying to put that clip back on, that should make it a little easier to get that clip back on. Let's try it. See if it's going to make a liar out of me. Like I say, guys, some of this stuff can be pretty darn tedious. I don't know if you can see how I've got it sitting on there. Now, come on, baby. It's going, it's moving. It's just being a pain in the ass. Almost there. We're getting down past that point now. There it went. I don't know if you guys could hear that snap. Sometimes you'll hear that snap when you're putting them clips back on, sometimes you don't. You just got to make sure that it has, you know, you got a point here, here, and here that pretty much have contact. You just want to make sure that it's snapped all the way around there. Make sure it's back down on there. Okay. Now we're ready. I may have put that piston and this follower in a little prematurely. We're just going to kind of work that around, shake it around a little bit. Now she's in. Now we're back to the point where we need to compress our spring again so that we can replace the pin and put this pin back in. Sorry about my dogs in the background yapping. Not a peep all day until I'm up here trying to make a video. Okay. Now this part, I do kind of remember this being a little kind of a pain getting it back in. And that thing, this follower will kind of move around on you a little bit. If I remember right, I think I dropped a screwdriver or something through it. as I was tightening to try to keep it where I need it to be. You can see there, you probably can't from that angle. Let me look. It's not clocked quite right. Looks like it's down a little bit. We'll see if we can get her worked in right there. I'm just going to kind of push up on the back of this, and back and forth. Like I said, this is where the nicer, fancier tools are probably pretty darn handy. Let's take our screwdriver, try to push it up. Now you can see this whole clamp is moving on me. Probably wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of grease on that. Try going a little bit easier. Come on, baby. You know you want to. Try to give that just a little tap. There we go. Just tap it in. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo. Okay. Before you let the pressure off of this, make sure, guys, that your pin is pretty well flush with both sides of this pressure tube. Or at least even. Kind of like that. Now we can go ahead and release the tension off the clamp. Boom. Done. Okay. Now we're going to replace this little stud. Just again, threads back in there. These really aren't hard to do, guys. They just take a little time. There's a couple little tedious things to it. And the orientation of that stud doesn't matter because this is going to fit over it no matter what. It'll turn on there. It's not a big deal. Throw that back in there. So we got all that back together. Now at this point, before I put this action back in to the stock, I'm going to take a little, this is the stuff that I wipe my outside of my gun down with. I don't ever use this for stuff inside the gun. This stuff has distillates in it, which is very, very bad for your air gun. You don't want that. So I kind of like to wipe it down at this point to get all my greasy salt crap that I got all over it from my hands, just so when it's in the action, it's not, there's not like you take it apart one day and it's all covered in rust down here because you have your salty freaking hands all over it. Which is still going to get some on there no matter what when you're putting it back in the action, but just kind of wipe it down. Probably could have put this guy in. Let's get it put in. It just slides in. We're ready for our stock. Again, this piece. It goes in. There's a few different slots in here. A couple different slots. It goes in this back slot right here. Slip it in there. And say it'll fall right out of there, so I'm going to keep an eye on that thing. Pop this baby back down in here. Just like that. Screw for the bottom here. And you know, you take these apart. I didn't do it here, but when you get them out, if the screws are all kind of gunky looking like these are, which I'll probably end up doing this. I'm not going to do it in the video. I'll probably, after I shoot this video, I'm going to take this thing back apart and I'm going to take a wire brush to these screws. I'm going to clean them all up and I'm going to apply a little bit more blue Loctite to them. It's something I probably shouldn't have tightened that all the way down yet. Let me back that off a little bit. Got her in there good. Now we'll go ahead and start this one. Try to. Okay, there it goes. And you get it in most of the way. This guy going. And like I said, guys, after you take this thing apart, if you do pull out that piston and clean it all up and put it back, I just about guarantee you that it's going to diesel. And it might do it a few times when you take it back out for the first time to shoot it again. Alright, guns back together. At this point, you're going to put your scope back on, and then you're going to take it outside with a tin of pellets. You're going to do some shooting. Get your scope dialed back in and bring her back to life. From what I understand, these nitro pistons failing isn't a real common thing, but like I said here, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 different people say, hey man, are you going to make that video? Just, they've had the same issue. So, there it is, guys. Gun is reassembled. Like I said, the nitro pistons are cheap to buy from Crosman. Like I said, they're like $10. So, and like I said, if you guys, if the manufacture date on it is before, if it hasn't been over 5 years, like I said, I really think Crosman will probably just give you another one. I mean, their customer service is amazing. So I've had to deal with them on a few different things, and they've always just, they don't mess around. They take care of it right away. So anyway, so there's the follow-up video to the nitro piston failure video on how to remove that nitro piston and the piston itself, if you want to go that far. So all right, okay guys, hey, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.